School of our Divine Infinite Being, Central Doctrine.
Harmonic oscillation, the continual process of human and spiritual development.
Every thought, emotion, or mental state has its corresponding rate and mode of vibration. And by an effort of the will of the person, or of other persons, these mental states may be reproduced, just as a musical tone may be reproduced by causing an instrument to vibrate at a certain rate, just as color may be reproduced in the same way. By a knowledge of the principle of vibration, as applied to mental phenomena, one may polarize his mind at any degree he wishes, thus gaining perfect control over his mental states, moods, etc. Kybalion, William Walker Atkinson.
Stapp continues, explaining the process following this explosive observer-nature, conscious collective unconscious event when describing harmonic oscillators. If one were to put a state of lowest energy into a container, then squeeze it into a more narrow space and then let it loose, the cloud-like form would explode outward, but then settle into an oscillating motion. Psychological strain, this probing action, one's volitional will, evidencing new knowledge, simultaneously causes the unconscious and collective unconscious to rebalance, compensating with archetypal language infusing wholeness into the total experience, oscillating in a newly gained balanced stability, as stated in the Kybalion, polarizing to a higher rate of vibration. This archetypal language guides this new knowledge into a higher form of understanding. Then the new conscious-unconscious oscillation stabilizes in a new state of experience. Stapp explains that this oscillation is caused by feedback between the first intervention, the observer, and the second intervention, the answer on the part of nature. As a state continues to replicate through continuous quantum collapses, the feedback and states of oscillation both increase and stabilize towards permanency. Stapp explains that due to this feedback and oscillation process, one's experience is polarized into higher and higher intensities and shorter feedback loops, causing the stabilizing force. The conscious and unconscious, thereby the collective unconscious manifestations of wholeness, polarize at higher, more stable frequencies through this process. This process is caused by the Quantum Zeno Effect, first introduced by the famous physicist and computer scientist Alan Turing. This is a very important process in quantum computing, and we will get into that and other relative conditions of this effect in further sections. The Quantum Zeno Effect and templates of action in orthodox quantum mechanics.
Successful living demands the generation through effort-based learning of templates for action. Henry Stapp, The Mindful Universe.
When one holds a form in meditation, such as a seated dragon, with the intention of simple mindfulness, they are holding a strain in their consciousness or a posture. This kind of direct, purposeful practice allows one to generate a continuous stream of highly relatable quantum collapses. The longer it is held with the intention of receptivity or listening for the answer on the part of nature, the stronger it becomes. Stapp teaches that continuous related quantum collapses, when slowed down by the Quantum Zeno Effect, move one towards the permanency of the state itself.
The Quantum Zeno Effect is a feature of quantum mechanical systems allowing a particle's time evolution to be slowed down by measuring it frequently enough with respect to some chosen measurement setting. Wikipedia.
Stapp taught that the measurement setting is a human consciousness holding a template of action long enough to accumulate quantum collapse permanency towards the development of a skill in any other template for action universally. For the theurgist, performing ritual with intent, holding the qualities, characteristics, and predicates of ritual performance by focusing the objective presence of the eternal archetypes and forms, templates, the experience towards a knowledge and ongoing experience of their deep spiritual agency. Over time, one's daily experiences are transformed as we become much more aware of the invoked archetype's presence in all of our experiences. This is due to the Quantum Zeno Effect and the development of templates for action through successive and consistent ritual praxis and divinatory intuitive exercise. We take the shape of the gods, increasing our capacity for knowledge of eternal truths, and over time they become more realized and permanent in our daily experiences. It reminds one of the famous Zen saying, "Do you miss the master? No. Now I see him everywhere." Stapp explains that the Quantum Zeno Effect allows one to hold the state of an experience, which then templates due to the continuously collapsing wave function. This is what has led us through every experience from infancy, when we learn to talk, through to our mastery of an entire language in our adolescence, to the cultivation of our ongoing relationship with the eternal being itself. This is what allowed us to be bad at soccer in year 1, and the best on the team after months of repetition and practice in year 4. It is one of the most natural abilities and exists before a baby says its first words. The Quantum Zeno Effect has templated towards permanency, starting with our very first experiences. These are followed by the millions of other templating effects through childhood to adolescence to adulthood. Theurgic ceremonial practices in all spiritual developments are simply of the same kind, but the templating here turns our awareness towards templating states of wholeness and knowledge of our infinite natures. The Quantum Zeno Effect process is obvious when learning something new under any discipline of thought or action. At first, we are clumsy, then a novice, then a master. Some quantum collapse templates you recognize are walking, talking, dancing, singing, and any and all skills that we have garnered over the course of time. By holding a form such as speaking, it templates more and more towards mastery the more you mindfully talk. Jung would say these templates are guided into existence by the archetypes, as they lens or perfect us towards an understanding and knowledge of relevant experience. The templating achieved through a concentrated form or posture strengthens our probing action like myelin increasing the speed of a nerve impulse. When neuroplasticity occurs, at first the impulse is weak. As it continues to fire the same sequence, a thick coating around the nerve fiber increases called myelin. The more myelin, the faster and stronger the firing of the nerve impulse, and the more stable the action it invokes. The longer we hold a form, the more often we concentrate on the presence of its vast agency, the more concrete and intense the observer's probing action answer from nature becomes. We gain greater and greater awareness of our observer nature and conscious-unconscious relational being. This is the lifting of the veil of ignorance taught in Vedanta, and the core of any developing yoga science from the beginning of its history. We can strengthen this quantum templating force through our regular lives by living with discipline and focus. Like all forms of learning that fall under this quantum templating force, one can purposely discipline towards experiences of wholeness. Through holding this state, we open to the intuitions received from the mind of nature. Through the application of the will, even that of the divine will, we strengthen this templating feature of quantum collapse towards more spiritual experiences through ritual, prayer, meditation, and in finality, the continual self-identification with the mandala archetype, or as many call it, the presence of God. The more we practice, the further we align our state of being with the self-God archetype, experiencing more and more intense states of freedom in the process of God realization. The Quantum Zeno Effect causes these experiences over time to become a more permanent state of liberated consciousness, as some would have it, an eventual state of stable, enduring enlightenment. Wolfgang Pauli's theory of statistical causation, the key principle of growth for the theurgist.
What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. Werner Heisenberg, Physics and Philosophy, The Revolution in Modern Science. A transfer has taken place from a strict or absolute causality to a statistical one, which permits only probabilistic predictions, the precision of which is given by the uncertainty relations. Wolfgang Pauli, The Interpretation of Nature and Psyche.
Through the orthodox interpretation, due to the uncertainty principle, there is always a condition in our realization that manifests from a seemingly unknown place. There is always some level of uncertainty, and this causes the imbalance between the conscious and unconscious mind. opening us to new experiences, new knowledge, and the manifestation of synchronicity. Pauli called his version of the uncertainty principle statistical causation. He argued that this perspective allowed the quantum principle of indeterminacy to be more accurately described. Every experience we have, including those of synchronistic wholeness, is always a statistical knowing, however accurate. There is always that changes us each time we have an experience, and the whole we become opens to one that is even more complete. We experience higher degrees of freedom and coherence that remains open-ended. We become more and more statistically accurate and achieve higher levels of wholeness that remain open-ended. When one begins the journey of ritual theurgy, the experiences from one encounter to the next continues to deepen, becoming more accurate and defined each time, even if the same ritual is performed hundreds of times. Alfred North Whitehead, the creator of process philosophy, would call this concretizing from the one towards the one. Stapp used Whitehead's philosophy openly in his writings. Here, Whitehead would talk about perishable objects being all the experiences that you have already had. Process through time takes all of these perishable objects, or past experiences, and concretizes them into a new unitary experience, or state of being that is single but broadened from the one before. Each time, adding in Pauli's law of statistical causation, it gathers together and once more concretizes back towards the one, expanding its nature but remaining statistically open towards higher levels of experience.
Intellectual growth should commence at birth and cease only at death. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existence. Albert Einstein. Interview with William Miller.
The idea of statistical causation itself is of extreme benefit to one walking a spiritual path, especially to the theurgist. Meditation, mindful prayer, and practices like yoga and theurgy allow one to take the shape of a perfecting form or posture. Our insights become sharpened and our intuition strengthened, uncovering aspects of truth that would otherwise remain hidden or unknown to us. The further we advance, the more accurate our perceptions become, pushing us towards a more and more liberated state. From those in the earliest stages through to the most advanced spiritual seekers, there is always that which manifests from seemingly beyond, that which gives the answer on the part of nature to the probing question of the observer, leaving an open-ended state of wonder, beckoning us forward in an endless state of new experience. We can become more and more accurate, more whole, and this process is continuous. Seeing all experiences as statistically accurate gives us a focus that opens our awareness to the answers that nature gives. Following the Greek, Orphic, and Hindu mindset on purity, karma, and reincarnation, we can see this easily applied. Through successive births, we perform karma, or sacred work, continuously moving towards wholeness until we have transpired this realm into the next. Through our virtues, actions, and sense of self, we become as statistically accurate as possible through direct action and experience. Eventually, our vibration as sentient beings rises above this form of current experience we call the physical world, and the Hindu calls Maya, into a new realm of experience. In the paradox of life, it is this world and our activity within it acting as a talisman to the gods, concretizing the nature of their eternal forms into the depths of generative existence that reveals this path upwards. As the famous quote goes, the only way out is in. Quantization and the continuous evidencing of archetypes in quantum renormalization.
Iamblichus maintains that the theurgist had to purify him or herself through ritual, intellectual and ethical means in order to receive divine messages through divination. He repeatedly emphasizes that divine illumination is omnipresent in the mortal world, yet the ritual practitioner's receptivity must have been properly cultivated so that they are ready to receive these divine illuminations. Crystallati, Divination and Theurgy in Neoplatonism.
Pauli himself had an incredible insight throughout the work he accomplished with Jung. So many things could take precedence, but there was one thing that he held close. He realized that synchronicities were not just sometimes or merely meaningful coincidences, but that the non-causal gap in which they manifest was always present and continuous. It is a matter of whether or not we are tuned to the awareness of their continual presence.
The divine powers in nature serve collectively as the tuning instrument for embodied souls. Gregory Shaw, Hellenic Tantra.
For the beginning seeker, they are aware of synchronicity sometimes. For a master or spiritual teacher, they are simply aware of this condition of wholeness more often. In reality, it is the continuous stream of a spiritual mind flowing from the observer and back in from the mind of nature with every experience. As Iamblichus stated, divine illumination is omnipresent in the mortal world. To better explain, we need to speak on another predicate of orthodox quantum mechanics within the results of measurement in the collapse of the wave function, the process of quantization. Stapp explains, the modern quantum theory was born by reorganizing or redeclaring that the symbols used in classical physical theory to represent ordinary numbers actually represents actions. The way you take a physically described system based on the Newtonian model of classical physics and make it quantum is through quantization. Stapp stated, there must be something very right about this replacement of numbers by actions, due to quantum mechanics' superior accuracy to the classical view. These quantized states become action pair potentials with one being real and one being imaginary. To give an example, let's take the classical mathematical numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. They follow in a sequence, with one before the other in an obvious hierarchy. When numbers are quantized, they are transformed into action pair potentials of probabilities, with one of the potentials being real and the other imaginary, and no longer maintain their numeration as in classical physics. These action pair potentials, from the position of an observer, exist in a cloud-like wave at every point in space-time equally in all directions in a state of superposition. This is the same cloud-space wave function we previously described above. For Pauli, the real action potential represents the physical world, and the imaginary action potential that of the psyche or consciousness. This imaginary action potential is an irrational imaginary number, but for Pauli, when moving to the smallest scales, it was the equivalent and necessary immaterial conscious psyche counterpart to the physical material world. Quantization is accomplished through an equation multiplying the imaginary unit I equivalent to the square root of -1. This generates an equal imaginary action to every real action, creating each action pair potential. The results of quantum equations work more geometrically, taking a vector shape within Hilbert space. Hilbert space is a fundamental concept in functional analysis and quantum mechanics. It is a complete vector space equipped with an inner product, which allows for the generalization of the notion of Euclidean space to infinite dimensions. This shape's psychological counterpart, the irrational imaginary action potential, to Pauli, were the archetypes of the psyche pre-manifest just before wave function collapse.
The stuff of reality, which is in this way ignored, is something that cannot be reached through logical, that is, rational thought. Pauli referred to this fact as the irrationality or reality. K.V. Laurie Kanan, Beyond the Atom.
Quantization introduced an irrational yet irremovable element to quantum measurement. In Pauli's philosophical writings, he related this irrational imaginary co-equal potential to the spiritual realm, the anima mundi of Platonism, the mind of nature, the psyche, or the soul of the world. For both Jung and Pauli, this was the realm of the collective unconscious, the archetypes and the psyche being co-equal to the real number physical reality. In quantum collapse, the final measurement or outcome requires a process of reversal called renormalization, a controversial concept today as its required use in quantum equations is believed to point to its incompleteness. But Pauli saw this differently. Here, the quantized action potential pairs renormalize to more classical whole real numbers. When the squeeze of the wave function happens on the cloud of infinite probabilities prior to the collapse, it causes a countable or referenceable number of potential states of which the observer may collapse to. These are real states or real numbers that are presented in their final result as having been renormalized. Stapp explains, the mathematical rules of quantum theory have a well-defined way to deal with the situation. They demand that the space of possibilities be derived in a certain very restrictive way into a countable set of alternative possibilities, where a countable set is a set that can be numbered. These now countable, referenceable whole numbers are what Stapp referred to earlier as the non-zero action potentials that are squeezed just prior to exploding out in the wave function collapse, causing an experience of new knowledge. Pauli, highly aware of the renormalization process in quantum mechanics, claimed the pre-collapse referenceable numbers of potential outcomes to be the manifestation of the psychological archetypes in the physical Platonic forms into third-dimensional space-time and out of their non-spatial temporal, infinitely scalable realm of existence. Here is where the mind-matter potential pairs lead to the outcomes of realization in one's experience. These guiding principles are both physical and psychic, but not quite realized, available for us to collapse to just one when having an experience. To give this a linguistic corollary, the action pair potentials are like verbs that appear in the potential state as actions. The renormalized, referenceable real numbers or probabilities are like the nouns that these actions represent. This process of going from action potential pairs at every point in space-time to a squeezed, referenceable, and countable number of probable outcomes is caused by the probing action or strain on consciousness by the observer. When renormalization occurs, archetypal pre-collapse patterns that exist in both the physical and psychical worlds become instinctually referenceable, igniting our intuition towards one experience over another. The archetypal patterns draw us towards wholeness in our experiences and are an irremovable co-equal part of the wave function collapse. Pauli concluded that these non-causal, undetermined answers on the part of nature to the probing action of the observer manifested wholeness into our experiences continuously. This is through an abrupt intervention in the otherwise smoothly evolving, mathematically described state of the system, as explained by Stapp. The mandala experiences of wholeness are always manifesting psychic archetypes co-equally with the physical forms we experience empirically. The synchronistic, meaningful experiences we have are a peak in this continuous event of the observer-nature relationship, where we become aware of the total state of the system. An enlightened being, liberated yogi, transcendent theurgist, experienced meditator, or disciplined disciple, applying these principles in their various forms has simply made their awareness of this continuous mind-matter state of collapse more permanent. As Iamblichus stated, divine illumination is omnipresent in the mortal world. One is able to gain awareness of this continuous stream by employing the self-discipline of quantum templating towards a higher, more permanent alertness to its presence. The deeper the attention we have to the mind of nature, the more we pay attention to the non-causal intervention of synchronicities in our lives, the more continuous our experience of the mandala of wholeness becomes.
Multiverse and orthodox, a perfect paradox in quantum mechanics. Complementarity, now that you have an understanding of it, can be applied allegorically to the orthodox multiverse interpretation paradox. They are a perfect mandala of opposing interpretations with an irreconcilable set of theories and axioms, although they explain the exact same events in scientific experimentation. You can use the orthodox method, as explained above, to gain a very complete vision of our school's foundational theories from one side. Complete and in and of itself, the grand opposite interpretation, the multiverse, successfully explains the same event from the point of the entire cosmos. This is what many worlds, and especially the multiverse interpretation of quantum mechanics, brings to the table. As seen through this interpretation, there are surprising correlations to the theories of a practicing theurgist in our school. The multiverse feels counterintuitive to the orthodox interpretation, as what is accounted for is the view of quantum events from the point of the entire cosmos, and orthodox from the point of the observer. The mandala of opposites is the perfect tension, unlocking the secret potential of a ritual theurgist. When applying both systems to theurgy, the key to success in ritual and life is completely unlocked. Orthodox from the point of the observer is statistically accurate and open-ended towards the next state of wholeness, where free will is directly experienced. Orthodox more specifically describes the smallest dimension, and the multiverse, as you will see, best explains the largest dimension as referenced from our doctrine above. In Orthodox, we are free to choose and the future is open. In the multiverse, we experience one branch of an infinite number of causal histories that are predetermined and have always existed. The secret paradox itself is when you look at both of them through the tension of opposites, we are absolutely free to choose, and at once absolutely destined and determined. Orthodox defines things from the Atman, personal self, the multiverse from the Purusha Atman, the total absolute self. As we get into this, we will also show that the multiverse theory defines better than any other the collective unconscious of Jung and Pauli, and the subtleties of the God image or presence of the one true reality, the opposite of the waking ego consciousness at its furthest pole. The multiverse interpretation and its implications for the work of Jung, Pauli, and our school.
What is the God equation? Einstein spent the last 30 years of his life chasing after the God equation, an equation perhaps no more than 1 inch long that would allow us to read the mind of God, a theory that would unite the two branches of physics. On one hand, we have the theory of the big general relativity, black holes, big bangs, and the theory of the small, quantum theory, atomic physics. How can you unite these two into one theory? At the present time, these two theories hate each other. They're based on different mathematics, different principles, different concepts. And yet we believe in our heart of hearts there has to be a master theory out there, the holy grail of physics, and that we think is the God equation. The leading and only candidate for that is string theory. Michio Kaku, string theory physicist, YouTube Talks.
The incredible predictive power of the multiverse interpretation takes quite a lot to unpack. First, the multiverse theory is a modified string theory version of the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. String theory is a mathematical physics framework that includes both the gravity of Einstein's relativity and quantum mechanics. Combining relativity with quantum mechanics has been extremely challenging, and without string theory, these two theories stand apart and irreconcilable. Gravity and relativity explain the larger universe with incredible precision, while quantum mechanics much better describes the microscopic world of waves and particles. What is needed is a theoretical framework that allows gravity, the hallmark of relativity theory, to work smoothly with the quanta of matter and energy. Gravity, as Leonard Susskind explained in his interview with Brian Greene, was already quantized to a degree as it acts the same in the micro and macro worlds. What was needed is some kind of theory of quantum gravity that would work to reconcile these challenges in the development of equations in physics. The tension between these two worlds and a theory that included gravity in quantum calculations was reconciled with precision and elegance through the discovery of string theory, first proposed by the physicist Gabriele Venziano in 1969. String theory combined astrophysics through relativity, the science of measuring the galaxy, and quantum mechanics, the science of measuring the world of particles, here once again creating a perfect mandala between these opposite measurements. This reconciliation is part of a more formal category of physics named quantum cosmology, although we will continue to reference string theory or megaverse below. These early concepts in string theory were formalized and set to usable parameters shortly after its conception by Leonard Susskind, Michio Kaku, and other prominent physicists. Due to his extensive early work, Susskind is considered one of string theory's founders, and his work specifically plays into the development of our school's model. He published his paper, The World as a Hologram, in the Journal of Mathematical Physics in 1995, and the multiverse interpretation of quantum mechanics, alongside Raphael Bousso in 2011. These two projects led to the very surprising conclusions which he explored in several popular books, exploring. One of the main reasons for writing the multiverse interpretation was a challenge Susskind identified with the many worlds interpretation, where the arrow of time in the results of scientific experiments was easily reversible. This was not a challenge in Copenhagen, where the collapse of the wave function, being the principal theory of the physical properties we experience, gives a direct closure to the arrow of time. Susskind's conclusions led to the necessity of the entire multiverse itself at the furthest boundary being in concert with the closure of results in quantum experiments at the smallest scales. The correlations to the ontological view of philosophical theurgy and the explanation of the macrocosmic living cosmos and the deepest structures of our divine infinite being are striking. We continue this further as we unpack this incredible revelation. We educated you on the many worlds version of direct experience in the chapters above. We spoke about branching worlds from one experience to the next and entanglement to the branch history with the most coherence. We will delve more into that part of the multiverse theory after introducing you to the greater multiverse and what this same interpretation can tell us about it.
The full name of string theory is really superstring theory. The super stands for this feature called supersymmetry, which, without getting into any details, predicts that for every known particle in the world, there should be a partner particle, the so-called supersymmetric partner. Brian Greene, taken from one of his public lectures.
As we have shown in the orthodox interpretation of quantum mechanics, string theory is also predicated on dual aspects. If Pauli would have lived another century, he would have a lot to say about this idea, adding to the Jung-Pauli conjecture as it stood. The following are the conclusions made by Leonard Susskind and his research colleagues in their string theory physics of the greater universe. We exist within a multiverse causal diamond representing all the many worlds in a single space-time geometry.
The global multiverse is a representation of the many worlds' all possible decoherent causal diamond histories in a single geometry. Leonard Susskind, The Multiverse Interpretation of Quantum Mechanics.
The multiverse postulates an infinite number of universes, of which ours is just one within a larger multiverse. It states that all the many worlds of the many worlds interpretation and the multiverse itself are the same thing, and that although we experience the splitting of worlds through the arrow of time, in their totality, they are all part of a fully coherent single geometry whose cause is eternal inflation. Our Big Bang universe is an inside-out black hole decohering causal diamond caused by eternal inflation accelerating from a singularity that began as a dimensionless point smaller than an atom originating in the greater space-time of the multiverse. Susskind calls the string theory landscape. In the multiverse, there are an infinite number of Big Bang, inside-out black hole universes that may be configured differently than our own, but all sourced from the same central wave function principle of the entire multiverse. The multiverse includes all decoherent diamond histories, or Big Bang inside-out black hole universes, in a single unitary geometric form. Causal diamonds are points of space-time that experience decoherence or the splitting of one world over another through the smoothly evolving state of the system over time. All of the inside-out black hole universes are causal diamonds at the furthest boundary. To better understand what a causal diamond is, let's start with the fact that you are one, and so is a single atom. The multi-billions of atoms that currently make up your physical body are all in the causal diamond of you. You are within the causal diamond of the Earth. Another causal diamond you are familiar with is our solar system, or the heliosphere. In string theory, the solar system's causal diamond has a boundary at the outermost perimeter. This can be imagined as a spherical, two-dimensional plane that surrounds our solar system just outside the boundary of Pluto.
The collapse of the system wave function cannot take place until a photon from the detector has passed Pluto's orbit. This would take about 5 hours, during which the system wave function is coherent. Leonard Susskind, Multiverse Interpretation of Quantum Mechanics.
Think about the solar system being on the inside of a basketball. The inside skin would represent this boundary. In the multiverse theory, a complete experience, the full, irreversible branching to one particular entangled state over another, does not complete until a photon entangled in that experience passes Pluto. This is the causal diamond boundary of our solar system, and it affects the very nature of your personal experiences. We are so tied to the solar system we occupy that only when this photon passes its boundary during the wave function's coherent period does an experiment or experience no longer have its irreversibility in the multiverse interpretation, which takes about 5.5 hours. The reason for this is mysterious, but it begins to explain why it often seems to be some time later that we have an aha moment where ideas we were wrestling with finally come to an answer. When the photon leaves our solar system, passing the boundary, at that moment we are fully entangled in the solar system's density state of one branching causal diamond over another. In our theurgic ritual practices, each of the ceremonies requires a meditation of completion 5.5 hours after a performance. By knowing our experience is complete when the photons release past Pluto at the boundary of our solar system, the multiverse interpretation has given us a sacred tool. Every experience one has is part of a continuous stream through which photons from those experiences are passing Pluto at this 5.5 hour delay. Although this is continuous, when performing a theurgic ceremony, one is purposely focused on the cycle related to the time delay from its execution. Over time, ritual, meditation, and lots of practice opens the theurgist to habitualizing these 5.5 hour cycles from every moment, bringing a more complete awareness of wholeness in their experiences. The string theory causal world line and causal diamonds larger than us. All causal diamonds have a world line. For you, this is the total history and all potential future experiences to which you could branch throughout your lifetime. The causal diamond that you are is nested in a series of causal diamonds, the largest being the entire Big Bang universe, itself nested in the eternally inflating multiverse's single space-time geometry. We exist within predetermined histories found in the world line of the causal diamonds larger than us. The largest causal diamond, as you might imagine, contains the full history and all potential futures of the causal diamonds embedded within it, all the way down to you. Our future is embedded within the past history world line of the causal diamonds larger than us. The experience of moving into the future is actually moving into the past of these greater causal diamonds. Every possible future you could have in your lifetime already exists in the past world line of these greater causal diamonds. Your world line's future experiences already exist embedded in the history of the solar system's world line. Our solar system's future already exists embedded in the history of the Milky Way galaxy's world line. The Milky Way galaxy's future already exists embedded in the history of the Big Bang universe world line. The Big Bang universe's future already exists embedded in the history of the multiverse's single space-time geometry world line at the largest possible boundary. Systems nested within systems nested within systems, which are ultimately just one total system where the future of smaller causal diamonds already pre-exist within the branch history of the causal diamonds surrounding it. It seems we have uncovered the string theory model of time as experienced through the Greek god Aeon, where the future is a returning version of the past. We most certainly have, and there is much more on this to come. Our Earth is alive, imbued with consciousness, and we are embedded within its causal diamond history, the theurgic ritual process. Planet Earth is a causal diamond, and our future is embedded in its past world line. Everything we could ever experience and have ever experienced already exists. As theurgists, we perceive the Earth as alive, imbued with mind, the psyche of our mother planet. Mind and matter, through the Jung-Pauli conjecture, are interwoven through entanglement, and both our physical and psychical futures already exist. The Earth's greater world line holds every experience we will have and have ever had on this Earth in its branch history of future experiences. This understanding is a secret key to the manifestation of divine knowledge, as we access this realm through divination, theurgy, and revelatory practices.
Primal experience takes place, as it were, within a world soul, an anima mundi, a living matrix of embodied meaning. The human psyche is embedded within a world psyche, in which it complexly participates and by which it is continuously defined. The working of the anima mundi, in all its flux and diversity, is articulated through a language that is mythic and numinous. Richard Tarnas, Cosmos and Psyche Intimations of a New World View.
Believing the world has a soul was an unchanged truth of Platonism through 600 years to the Neoplatonists when the academies were closed in the 5th century CE. They called this the anima mundi, the spiritual presence and thereby psyche of the earth. This Platonic soul of the earth was a central theme in Pauli and Jung's theories. Almost every indigenous culture believes the world to be alive and imbued with a spiritual soul. Those who practice witchcraft in its several forms work primarily with this natural spirit of the planet. The landscape of the anima mundi evidences its flowering in Christianity as the Holy Spirit and in Hebrew Kabbalistic practices as the Shekinah. The presence of the Holy Spirit in Western Abrahamic religions follows this one idea through to every version of their liturgy. The anima mundi is imbued with revelatory power as it contains all the potential futures of everyone on earth within its past causal diamond world line. According to Pauli, the anima mundi communicates through dreams and experiences of synchronicity. Pauli held to this one principle closer than any other throughout his personal writings on Platonism and philosophy in general.
The soul of the world, being a luminous and self-moving essence, is also a perfect animal, the leader of the celestial gods. Hecate is the cosmic soul, who presides over the three worlds, harmonizing the divine, the psychic, and the material. Hecate, who binds the heavens and the earth, and who orders all things in the world according to the divine mind. Hecate, who leads souls through the spheres and opens the gates of the heavenly realm. Chaldean Oracles.
In the Chaldean oracles, Hecate was the feminine soul of the entire cosmos, and in our model represents the causal diamond histories from the cosmic horizon of the universe all the way down to you. Hecate contains the future of the entire cosmos already in her branch history world line. She is the womb of space, and within this womb we continually gestate into higher forms of experience, through entangling to one branch history over another within her causal diamond body. Although we integrate this into a more complete vision and ontology within our divine infinite being, witches practicing craft connect to this realm of nature most directly. The greater causal diamond branch histories that we entangle to are all futures and are accessed through the art of divinatory intuition, or as Iamblichus named it, sympathy. Sympathy magic and witchcraft are highly linked in their relationship to accessing this realm of the anima mundi. Although, as we discuss in other sections of this work, separating the sympathy or intuitive access through divination and ceremony to this realm from the divine love and submission to the higher gods and theurgy can be problematic and cause exaggerations, binding one to psychological schisms. Hecate was the queen of witches, and we promote witchcraft, but from that of cosmic or white witchcraft, dedicated to the philosophical framework of Platonism, as they do in the Chaldean oracles.
The divine astral is solar and celestial in nature, whereas the gross astral is lunar, reflective, and purely automatic. Blavatsky confirms this hypothesis of the dual nature of the astral light in these words: the astral light or anima mundi is dual or bisexual. Israel Regardie, The Tree of Life, A Study in Magic.
The anima mundi for the occultist interchanges with the astral realm, a dimension very alive and naturally pluralistic, teeming with intelligence, yet of one substance. A theurgist's imagination operates within this astral realm that lies within the anima mundi, the womb from which the results of their ritual practice are born. In theurgy, the imagination is a direct gateway into this world of being. Through ritual, the theurgist calls the elements of earth, air, water, and fire, aligning with the arcane forces of the earth's psyche, this anima mundi, in preparation for the invocation of the higher archetypes and forms. one is immediately faced with the lunar shadow energies rooted in our instincts and autonomic processes of the body. Here, we must come to terms with our visionary selves, accomplishing the lunar work, or as Jung would put it, shadow work. Once planetary and lunar forces are aligned, the theurgist can engage higher eternal principles more solar in nature. Earthbound forces, once aligned, open the theurgist to cosmic forces beyond the Earth, centered in the planetary solar system itself. Aligning with the solar force, the theurgist becomes a microcosm of the solar system, mastering the planetary forces through a vertical hierarchy of 7 degrees. In step, aligning and invoking the planetary gods of the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Then through the process of the zodiac, one invokes the celestial realms represented by the 12 signs: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and finally Pisces, all in preparation for entering the numinous worlds of Neptune, Uranus, and finally the underworld of the furthest sphere, Pluto. In our school, we offer a 15-month theurgic ritual program utilizing the Wheel of Tarot, Rhoda, as the guidepost into the invocation cycles of experience for accomplishing this grand alignment across the 36 decans of astrology. Once aligned with the solar logos, the theurgist invokes the personal daemon, or holy guardian angel, the undying soul, existing with the eternal archetypes and forms, the gods at the furthest perimeter, thereby uniting directly with our divine infinite being, the totality state of existence. Although many of these procedures are kept secret and given only to the initiated, we will continue to unpack this further below.